So, for the record, what is your name?
Lizzy.
And how old are you?
12.
And what are we going to do today?
Build a computer.
Have you ever built a computer before?
No.
Okay. So, today, we're going to build a computer. Okay? Now, all the parts are laid out. Okay? Right now, they're so that the people watching can see what we have.
Mm-hmm.
The main parts are going to be the case, power supply, CPU,
Mm-hmm.
cooling fan for the CPU, which in this case is included in the same box. Okay. Memory or RAM,
Mm-hmm.
video card,
Mm-hmm.
which with this processor we actually don't need a video card to run. We need it for performance. Hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those are the important pieces.
Mm-hmm.
We also have an SSD, which means solid state drive.
Mm-hmm.
And that is basically a super speed hard drive. Okay? And we've got a very cool and special case we've never built with, I've never used, never even physically seen it. So this will be the first time that we'll have ever seen the actual case. And I do hear that it does not look in real life exactly as it is in the descriptions. But we're going to use all these parts and we're going to make a cool little computer. Okay?
Cool.
Alright. So first thing we're going to do
Mm-hmm.
is we're going to rearrange things and clear off our space, stack things nicely, and then we're going to start building it. First step's going to be the case and preparing the case.
Okay.
So, first thing, move this out of the way and we're going to set it down nicely right here. We've got our trusty motherboard, a nice AB350M from Gigabyte. We've got DDR4 Corsair Vengeance RGB RAM. We have an RGB Thermaltake 700 watt power supply, a 120 gigabyte SSD so that we can get the Windows application and some core files going high speed. Everything else will be on a regular data drive, which will be a Western Digital 1 terabyte, lots of storage space, at least for what we do. Video card is a GeForce GTX 1050 Ti FTW. What that means is that it's a GeForce GTX, meaning that it's considered a high performance card. 1050 is the series. Ti FTW is the model.
Okay.
So it's a 1050 Ti, and an FTW for the win is the marketing that this particular brand used for this particular card.
Cool.
So let's stash that over there. And then we will also have a nice Ryzen 5. It's a quad-core 8-thread CPU. That means that it's got 4 miniature brains inside, and each one acts as 2.
So it has 8 thoughts.
Correct. All right. So let's stash these slightly off to the side here. All right. One of the cool things about this box is that it is not a standard black or gray like we usually do.
Wow, that's stuck in there. Got it.
There we go.
Static electricity.
All right. So this is a snow edition, so it's white. Okay. Here you go. You can hold the little guide. And that's going to tell us where all the different pieces are to the puzzle, but some of the key ones we can see really easily. For example, on the back, this is where the power supply is going to go. These are the expansion cards, so things like the video card.
Okay.
This is where the I/O shield or I/O plate goes, which is where all the plugs to the motherboard are. And there'll be a piece that we put in, and then the motherboard will sit inside it, kind of. And then we have this nice see-through panel. Okay.
Cool.
Now the see-through, had to grab a screwdriver. So in the back here, we have the spot for the power supply, expansion slots for things like the video card and other things, like wireless adapters and things like that can be done too. Then on here, we've got where the I/O plate's going to go, and the I/O plate is going to be things for the input-output is what it's called.
Okay.
And it's basically just a shield so that dust and dirt doesn't get back here, but also allows you access to things like USB, video, and stuff like that that's built into the motherboard.
Cool.
Then here we've got the fan for exhaust. Okay. Now, on the side, got a clearish panel. It's darkened so that it's nice. It's got a sheet protector over it so that it's not going to get scratched up while we're working on it. Screws to take it off. Looks like there's 5 screws to hold it in place, which is kind of cool. Most only have 4, or even 2. In some rare cases, 1. And then the front panel. Now this is going to be fun when we turn it on to test it. I can't wait to see your face when we do that. And up top, we've got power button, reset button. Looks like an LED switch. We've got USB. There's 3 ports. One should be, that one there is the USB 3, and then 2 USB 2s, and then sound.
Okay, so that's like the headphone jack?
Headphones and microphone.
Speakers, right?
Not for these. These will be headphones and microphone. The speakers will plug into the back, into the I/O, or into an expansion card, depending on what motherboard you have and what options you go with.
Okay.
So, real quick, we're going to take a peek in here. To do that, we're going to loosen these just a touch. Now when it comes to pressure on things like electronics, a good idea is to go cross. Some people will say otherwise, and it's up to you in the end. In my experience, things like computers and car tires, it's better to do it in a star pattern. But that's my preference. There we go. And we'll set this down here. So now, cable's up real nice and easy. We're going to set this down plastic side so that it doesn't get scratched up. Oh, looks like both sides are plastic, so that's good. And then inside,
wow,
it's actually a lot better than I'd thought. So we've got a shroud to cover the power supply so that it's not seen, which is really cool for the glass panel. Then on top of that, all of the cable management spots have grommets for the main parts. And the grommet is basically a piece of rubber that protects the case from getting scratched, but also the cables from getting rubbed too much.
That's cool.
It'll make it a lot easier to aim things how we want them to sit, because then they'll stick a little better rather than just sliding back and forth. And then all the cables are right here.
It's pretty.
Don't see any external facing 5 1/4, so no CD, DVD drives.
Okay.
Okay. Power for the LEDs.
Cool.
Fan for the exhaust. Gets the little power thing here, and that'll plug into the motherboard. And then all of these cables here go to things on the motherboard. So these are going to be the power lights, the hard drive lights.
Oh, cool.
And this is for the audio, so it's going to be these up here.
They're all labeled too.
Yeah. USB 2.0, USB 3.0, and then these are the reset and power switch buttons. Without these, the buttons up here do absolutely nothing, and then you end up not turning it on.
So I could just press them over and over again and nothing would happen.
Right now, even with the power supply plugged into everything, as long as this is not plugged in, absolutely nothing happens. And it also has already installed the little standoffs, is what they're called. They're basically where the screw holes go for the motherboard.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. So, one more part of our puzzle though. We're gonna grab this side panel real quick. Alright, so there we go, and these look like they're identical, so shouldn't be a problem with them later. And then we pop off this bad boy here. And this, we're gonna sit down over here nicely. And this is, oh, there's some bays down here. So this is the 3.5 inch bays. Okay?
What is this?
That is most likely the screws here. Let's. So to pull these out, you squeeze
Oh,
and
that's
pull.
cool.
So it looks like some zip ties for cable management, and the screws for the standoffs and things like that. And that we just undo like that. And then these are where the 3.5 inch bays are going to be for the hard drive. So we're gonna plug this into here, and then it's going to go into here. We're only going to need one of those, so we're going to pull that one out. So and this is where the power supply is going to sit. It's got a nice fan here, and it's got a filter over it, so that's kind of cool. It helps to keep some of the dust out. Well, it helps to keep the dust out for these. Otherwise, you can just take these off, and a little more dust gets in there. So, looks like there is a 2.5 inch bay here. And then before we put the cover back on, we can do some cable management, and that's what these here are. These little things here are for the zip ties so that we can tie in the cables.
Cool.
So we'll set a cable up here, for instance, and zip tie it so that it sits and doesn't move. So, and the grommets will hold the plugs for us really nice and neat. Looks like it's a fairly sturdy case, so it's nice. So, ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
What do we start with?
So, it depends on who you ask. Me personally, I think I'm going to go a little different than most would probably do. I'm going to say let's do the power supply.
Power supply? So, this is the power supply, correct?
That is the power supply, correct. So, why don't you go ahead and peel it off real quick.
It didn't work how I hoped it would. But for real.
Nah, we'll include that. It'll be fun. Tell you what. Old
That's
trick.
what I was looking for. But I couldn't find it, so I thought, screwdriver, screw.
There you go.
And this is an RGB too, so
It has RGB to it, so
it's gonna look like that.
supposedly, we don't know,
That's
we've
gonna
never
be
used
pretty.
this model. It is, however, 80 plus, so that's really good. That means that it's going to be more efficient than just a regular throwaway that we'd buy normally.
Does this mean 700 watts?
Yes, ma'am, it does. 700W is 700 watts.
There's a little menu in Chinese or Japanese. I can't really tell which.
So it comes with a power cord, a brand spanking new power cord.
That's cool.
I've
And
only
this
got a
is
drawer
the-
full of those.
And this is the actual power supply, right?
Correct. And they always do a really good job of wrapping it in bubble wrap. Now, the one bad thing I'll say about this real quick, although it was packaged really well, comes really clean, no scratches or anything, so
Why
it's
does
really
it have a
nice.
switch?
Hold on, I'll explain that in a
No.
second. The power cords are what is referred to as ketchup and mustard cords.
Because they're yellow and
Yellow, red, and some black, but yellow and red, which means they're not going to be as nice as if they were just black or if they were a nice fancy color. They are, however, sheathed, which makes it really nice because it'll be a little bit less noticeable. Then on the back, after that quick little break for water, so this switch here is RGB lighting, and that's going to turn on the glow to it.
Yeah.
And this is the power, so that you can actually plug it up, put the power cord on it, plug it into the wall, and still nothing will happen no matter what happens until you switch the power switch.
Huh.
So now,
Doesn't that seem like some people might like not even realize that.
Happens all the time. In fact, there's another YouTuber that did that on a video that I watched just the other day. He couldn't figure out why his computer was not turning on. He tried the switches. Funny thing, he didn't plug the inside wires on that I told you had to be plugged in. He didn't plug those in. So he plugs those in, still nothing. He reaches around and pushes this, and then it finally starts up. So even pros mess up and do accidental stuff. Put that aside. So now, the reason that I don't usually do these first is because the extra cables are going to cause a little bit of an imbalance as we go through it, but it's going to be easier for us to put this in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down towards the vent so that one, it vents better, but two, the light when it turns on will be more noticeable because it'll go through the vent here as opposed to being blocked by the shroud.
Okay.
So to do this, we insert here,
That seems pretty easy.
and then we just aim it back here,
Just goes
and then it's just gonna match up these little things here. So what I'm gonna do,
screws.
yes ma'am, and these that the manufacturer of the case provided, Thermaltake, is the manufacturer of both the power supply and the case.
Oh, cool.
They provided these nifty screws that we should be able to match to this, and that way it fits the case really nicely as far as color. It won't stand out. They're black as well. Absolutely. What would be less fun than just watching? I suppose not watching.
True.
Alright, so we're going to set these down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start one so that it'll sit a little better for you. Okay? Alright, so now there's 4 total that you need. Sometimes they sit a little off, so depending you might need one or the other. Okay?
Okay.
And what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to go ahead and hold it. Now, like I said, I usually do star, meaning crisscross. So you can choose one or the other of that. Or you can go with the top if you want to do like a lot of other people do. It's up to you.
Well, I think the star is better because it sits better when both are like that.
Okay. So go ahead and see whichever one of those is easier to get the screw into. I think that one. There you are. And just screw it into place. There you go. Now we're going to tighten it again in a minute, but go ahead and screw that one. And get that 4th one in there. No!
Oh my goodness, this screw just does not want to work. Again,
Blooper reel?
Blooper reel.
Do you want to know a trick that I found?
What?
Sometimes, if you use your fingernail, it'll hold it a little easier. Then you can guide it and screw it in. Alright, so now go ahead and tighten here, and in here, and in there, and in there. And just make sure that it's as much force as you can. Okay? And we don't want to strip it. So just until it stops turning, and then we're good.
Okay.
Oh my word, no, you broke it! You did a good job. Sorry.
Daddy.
Alright, so now, this we're going to go ahead and lay down. Okay. We're going to stash that out of the way real quick. So now, like I said, it's going to be a little off because of the cables, and I knew that going into it, and I explained that. So now, at the heart of any build is going to be the core components. So the core components that have to be in absolutely every single thing is one, the power supply, but that's a given. But the heart of the machine,
The motherboard?
the motherboard and the CPU are the 2 absolute required things, and then the RAM will depend on the motherboard and CPU. So in our situation, the motherboard, which is this Gigabyte AB350 MDS3H. I've never used it before. I have, however, used some Gigabyte products in the past, years and years ago, but it's been a long time. The last computer that we built, that I built, is over here, and it was an MSI motherboard. Mommy's old computer that I built at the same time was an MSI motherboard as well. I seem to, for some reason, go in batches. It'll be one brand over and over again. So, the seller of this sent us the receipt.
So that we can return it if we need to?
Not likely, because the guy sold it to me for $61.75, which was actually a pretty good deal. Normally they sell for $65 to $70. The receipt, however, shows that he paid 15 bucks.
Oh.
So he definitely got the better deal. Alright, so inside the box we have a nice SATA cable. Actually looks like two SATA cables. Perfect for having an SSD and a hard drive.
Cool.
So we're going to set that aside for now because the SSD for sure did not come with one. And then we carefully pull out the motherboard.
The bag is cool.
Now, we're going to set this down nicely here. That's an anti-static bag so that if you happen to have built up some static electricity and touch the bag, it's not going to hurt anything inside. This is the I/O shield or plate.
Oh, so that's what goes over here.
Directions. Now, it will come to a point where at the most you'll ever need out of these eventually will be just the pin layout of things like the power adapter and the different ports on the front. You can also find that on this nifty little quick user's guide.
That's cool.
Now we've never used this board, so we're going to rely on these later on to plug in the correct plugs.
What is that?
This is a CD.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays everybody uses digital. This is going to be all the drivers for things like sound and things like that that are built into the motherboard.
But since it doesn't have a CD drive, it's going to need a flash drive.
Correct. And most of the time you don't need this. Windows will oftentimes pick it up, but having the drivers that the manufacturer gives will allow it to function better, guarantee that all functions will function, and then when we connect to the internet down the road, it'll be able to update those drivers and already have the correct ones in place. So now we are going to stash this nifty little box aside. So now all the stuff is pretty much laid out here. Okay. One of the hardest parts when you put a motherboard in is that piece there, which is the I/O shield, because sometimes the case manufacturer is a little too tight on the area and you gotta flex it just a little bit. So
it looks like a perfect fit though.
It's supposed to be, they're standard size in 99% of the cases. However, even being off by a millimeter can cause it. Okay, so video turned off, so we're starting back. It's going to have a little bit of a cut to the video here. That was not intended, but what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and line up the I/O shield. Put it into place here. There you go. Now just snap it into place. Push all the corners in. Make sure they're all snug and neat.
Here we go.
No.
No.
This is one of those cases where it's off by just the tiniest bit. That should be good. Alright. So that's going to show all the different ports. Okay. Now, some of them are going to be color coded. Most of the time the color coding doesn't mean much other than what the manufacturer uses for it.
Okay.
So now, with any of these core components, anything at all that goes inside that's electronic, you want to be careful of static electricity. We're on carpet in our apartment here. Carpet and people make static electricity. A lot of people will tell you you have to have a wrist guard thing to do the anti-static stuff. Although that's helpful, it's an extra bit of money that we didn't want to spend right now. All you have to do is make sure that before you touch any electronic component like a motherboard or a hard drive or a CPU, first you touch the case. Okay? The metal of the case will ground you. Okay? So then the next step, we're going to pop open this anti-static bag. Now with this, we need to be careful, okay? Oils on the skin touch things, causing problems. So you want to make sure you always touch around the edges. Okay? Now, in this particular case, let's go ahead and grab those screws real quick. There you go. So in this particular case, the motherboard has some integrated features. It's going to have sound built in, so speakers plug into these. It's got USB 2.0, which is the old style, Ethernet, which is for internet, 4 USB 3s. In this case, they color-coded black for 2 and blue for 3, which is somewhat popular. HDMI for built-in video, DVI for built-in video. Looks like some more USB 2 ports and a older PS2. Now the PS2 is pretty rare nowadays because USB has replaced it. However, there are some errors in Windows that will not allow it to boot. And then when you boot onto the BIOS, some rare cases, BIOS, which is the built-in operating system of the board, does not recognize USB sometimes. And so that's there for more of a compatibility in rare cases. And this one has both purple and green on the same one. Used to be that I believe green was mouse and purple was keyboard, generally speaking. In this case, it's symbolizing that both keyboard or mouse can be used in the same port.
Okay, so like my keyboard, I think that the mouse plugs into the keyboard.
Correct.
So that's what that would be?
No, what it is you'd still use USB because yours is still a USB setup. This would be for an old keyboard that I think I've got one in a closet somewhere. I don't think I have any mice that are like that, but I have some adapters that make the new mice into this style. It's just the plug head, but it's saying that you can use one or the other. Yours uses one USB port for the keyboard, and then the keyboard has what's called a hub built into it, so that the mouse can be plugged into it. So, and then this comes with the battery to store all the settings that we make in the BIOS, a couple fan headers, and then on here is the bracket for holding the processor cooling fan, and this is where the processor is going to go. Okay? So now, before we plug this in, we're going to do a couple of things. Okay? So now, if you look at this, it's got a little lever, so we pull the lever back, okay? And what that does is it opens it's got a little hinge, see how it slides? So what it does is the pins of the processor, in this case the Ryzen 5, goes inside, and then this locks them by basically shrinking the area down and locks them into place so they make the correct contacts. Now, it also is one of the newer boards that only has one side to the RAM. So RAM only needs to be clipped on one side. It'll clip automatically on the other side. And it says here on the motherboard 1, 3, 2, 4. Seems a little odd, right?
Yeah.
So what it is these boards run what's called dual channel or single channel. Single channel would be 1 memory stick or 3 memory sticks. But dual channel, which speeds up performance a little bit, would be 2 of the same color and then 2 of the same color being identical. And we happen to be using a 16 gigabyte
RGB.
It's RGB, but it's a 8 stick 16 gigabyte kit. So there are 2 identical sticks of 8 gigabytes that will go into this. Okay? So now, first what we're going to do is we're going to put the CPU in first, and then we'll put the RAM in, and then we'll put the fan on. Okay?
So this is the CPU.
This is the CPU. Now, when it comes to you guys, I love you, and I'm teaching you how to do it. However, I'm not going to allow you guys to do the CPU because there's a couple of important little things that we'll teach. Now, the next time we team up for this, I'll let you guys attempt to do it. So now, inside the box is the actual processor and the cooling fan. Now, not all CPUs come with a cooling fan. For instance, grab me the one that's in that box right there, and I'll show that real quick.
The i7.
Yes, this is a limited edition Core i7 CPU. This is the new 8086K in celebration of their 40th anniversary. Notice how much smaller the box is. Okay? There's no space for a cooling fan. So this is just the CPU. Okay? So go ahead and put that back. Alright, so now inside the CPU box, just the CPU part of it, they used to call them clamshells because of the shapes they used to be in. These are less of a clam and more of a regular plastic container. So this will have the CPU and a little sticker. Gonna have to figure that one out. There we go. Now the sticker here is for computer manufacturers. Okay. So it's for the Radeon graphics card, Vega card, which is built into this particular video. The particular GPU is in the CPU, and then this is the CPU sticker. And manufacturers will put these on the front of the case so you know what's inside. Intel's used to say powered by Intel, and then whatever model processor. This just says AMD Ryzen 5. And that would be what this here is. Now this is a Ryzen 5 2400G. And the 2400G is second generation. And you never want to touch the silver part of a CPU. But see how it's got this little triangle?
For you to hold.
It shows you exactly where it's going to match into the motherboard. So we're going to pull the lever back. Match the pins up. Let's see. Oh, looks like it's on that side. There it goes, right into place. And then you just put it down. Now, as I was saying, this is a 2400G, so it comes with built-in graphics. The 2200G R3 also has a similar package. We wanted something a little better though. So we have the 1050 Ti. It's not a lot better. This is equivalent roughly to a 1030. So it's okay for basic stuff, word processing, stuff like that, and even some minor gaming. But I wanted to get a decent setup so that it can do close to anything. Alright, so that's the CPU. The main part I'm doing here is going to be also the cooling fan.
Where does the fan go?
Well, the cooling fan, see this weird gray stuff? That goes over top. And this is going to go over top. Now, CPU fan here, this cord goes here. This is going to sit in the back. So to be perfect, for the logo to be perfect, it would need to sit this way. However, this is not going to sit this way. So we're going to have to choose a little bit different. So we're probably going to go this way, make it a little tighter on this so that it fits a little smoother. We need to be very, very careful with this. Now, for this, because this has these for the other coolers, we're going to need to take that out real quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to undo these. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and finish that for me? Careful, okay?
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and grab the other one and we'll just peel that piece right off and it'll take the screws with it.
Does she need to ground herself while she's doing this?
No, we've already grounded ourselves, so she should be okay. But normally, yes, you would need to ground yourself. You're grounded. Now these motherboards are a little bit different than the last set that I got. The last ones were still part of the old generation that just used 4 pins for the CPU. This one uses 8 pins for the CPU power, so it's a lot stronger of a current going from the power supply to the board.
Perfect.
There you go. And go ahead and grab that one. There you go. And we're going to leave the back plate in place. And the back plate is these screw holes. Now, on some of the Intel boards, you don't need a back plate because theirs are just kind of like snap in place. This is not a snap in place. So now we're going to have to make the choice. There's no RGB on this fan. Do we want it to sit this way, where it's got AMD? It's going to basically sit this way. So AMD will sit this way with the front of the case being over here, or do we want it to be this way? This may make it a little bit harder because this won't wrap around to the spot around this way. It means that there'll be a little more play on the cord, so it'll be a little bit sticking up more. Whereas this way,
I think it's best to go the way the cord is supposed to go.
either way works, but this way is probably going to be the best. Now we're going to sit this in place real quickly. Okay. And it should be lined up, so go ahead. Now we need to be careful with this, okay? You go ahead and start it. Other way, I think. This way. Okay. And then we definitely want to do the star pattern on this. Alright, now this one. Go ahead and stop that one and do this one over here. So we need to be very careful because if we go too hard, it can break things. So I'm going to finish this one up just to make sure that it doesn't get over tightened. And you hear those little pops and everything, that's going to signal that it should be good. Alright, so we don't want to go too far. And then this is the fan cable that allows it to be powered. It's going to be plugged into here, and this is going to allow the sensors in the motherboard to tell the fan when to turn on or off. Okay? Now, it's secure enough that you can lift it this way. Go ahead and plug this in. It only plugs in one way. Now, the next step that we're going to do before plugging it into the case, we're going to do the RAM. Our nice Corsair Vengeance RGB. So we're going to slip this open. I'm going to let you do one of the sticks, and I'm going to show you how to do it with the other one.
Okay.
Okay?
It looks very cool though.
It looks extremely cool. I've never done RGB on a computer ever. So this is a first for me too.
This is like an almost completely RGB though.
It's a lot of RGB. Alright, so this is the 16 gigabyte kit. That's 2 times 8. Okay?
Wow.
So now with these, you want to make sure that you are careful pulling them out. Okay? And you do not want to touch with your fingers or any body part the gold contacts. Okay? Now the cool thing about it is that it only goes in one way. Okay?
Okay.
This little notch here and this little notch here only allows one way. It's just off center so that you won't notice it in most cases. Okay?
Looks like it's
There we go. First time for everything with this. You just press down equally on both sides and then that switch here. There we go. So now that is in place. Okay?
And that one goes here in this gray one.
Because remember how it goes 1, 3, 2, 4?
Mm-hmm,
We're going to use dual channel. We're going to use 1 and 2. So in this situation, it's the furthest and the third. So we're going to put it in. It should be this way here. So see these little grooves?
Mm-hmm.
They go in a little bit. There you go. And push gently down. There you go. So now that is 16 gigabytes of DDR4. And it's Corsair Vengeance RGB. Now, I've never used it, so I don't know what it's going to look like in the end, but it's
These are
definitely
the
cool.
lights.
That's where the lights are going to be visible. Alright, so other things that are going to be used down the road, we're going to use one of these slots for the video card. We're going to plug power into here for the CPU, and that just powers this. And then this is a 24 pin, what used to be called a 20+4. And this is going to be the board's power that powers everything other than the CPU.
Oh wow.
So the 24 pin will go here and the 8 pin will go there. On this particular power supply, I believe it's a 4+4 to make the 8. So it's kind of cool. Now, picking this up, we do not want our oils to get on anything. So we're going to pick it up this way.
That
Okay.
looks like I like wouldn't have thought you would pick it up that way because it's like picking up a jar of pickles with the lid.
I agree. In this case, this is the way that most people do it to save from contacts, because if we get oils onto these pieces down here or up here, it could end up shortening things or causing problems. Now I'm going to set it down into place. You're going to screw it.
Okay.
This, we line this stuff here
Yeah, because
up with that. And then those standoffs will plug into this.
okay.
Done?
Mhm.
All right. So now, next step is going to be power. So now, this is the 4+4 that I was telling you about. And this is the 20+4.
Okay.
The 20+4 we want in here.
Mhm.
And the 4+4 we hopefully, no, doesn't look like it's going to fit up there. So we're going to have to plug it around this way. And then
20+4.
20+4, why don't you go ahead and plug it in right there. If we don't want to just press, we gotta, okay, go ahead and press it down. Yep, okay, we're good. Alright, so now, that'll be power to the board and to the processor. And so now, let's get this out of the way. Okay, so we had to stop because the battery died. Might have missed a few minutes. Just a brief recap before we get back to building after charging the battery. We've installed the motherboard with some extra standoffs, the I/O plate, the power supply, the RAM, processor, cooling fan for the processor. I went ahead and I ran some of the cables back into the back so they're a little bit out of the way. And we're gonna do a couple more items to finish up. We've still got our Western Digital Blue hard drive. We've still got our SSD, which I did slice open to make it a little bit easier on us. And we have our 1050 Ti FTW video card, which I slit on the one side to make it a little bit easier to rip open in a minute. So we're going to go ahead and get to that in just a second here. We've gone ahead and screwed everything into place. So we have the power connectors for the CPU and the motherboard in place. We still have the cables for all the extras, although they've been run to the back. They still need to be plugged in as well, so we'll do those in just a minute here. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, why don't you stand up? And first thing first is we'll go ahead and do things like the case pieces. So we're gonna do, alright. So power and reset. If you look on here, really teeny tiny, it's gonna say hard drive.
Oh, power and reset.
Okay. So power. That's that one. And the other one is reset, so go ahead and get those in. Okay. So now that's all of the cables so far that are needed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now go ahead and grab the video card and find the opening that's already open. There you go. These things right now, because of everything, are pretty much worth their weight in gold, so be careful. Give me the trash. Alright, so let's go ahead and we'll pop this here. Shazam!
And it has the manuals.
We don't need no stinking manuals. Okay, we probably will need some of it later. This is a nice looking card.
Yeah. And then
So-
it comes with all this extra stuff. And the DVD.
So now the CD again is going to be something that we're going to probably have to just transfer the drivers on, but I think I've got a newer set of them downloaded already. So we're not too worried about that.
Wow.
This is, however, again, something we want to be careful with how we hold it.
It has
It's
the
got the
nice
slots here,
plastic wrap.
so and it's got the nice little covers on it. So we've got the HDMI here in the middle. We've got DVI down here.
A little
More difficult to get off. There we go. It's a DVI. And then this up here is probably a display port. Yep, display port. So that's cool. It's got a nice double fan cooler. And then it's got the heat sink behind. It does, however, also require 6-pin for power. So it's going to be a little more power hungry than just off the board. And then this here is the spot that goes into the motherboard down here. Now, since it is a double wide card, we are going to have to remove 2 of these. Okay, so we're going to set this down gently real quick.
And just
Screwdriver right here. Go ahead and unscrew one of them. Grab that one. You want to go ahead and remove the blank. And then for this card, pull this off here. Okay. Let's go ahead and put that with the box. We'll keep that for later. We don't want plastic inside, so let's go ahead and remove this right now. Careful. Okay. So now, for this, you just line it up. Okay. Then you just push down into place. So go ahead and push gently down, right there. There you go. Alright, so now it's in place. So now we need to lift this up like this. We look at these cables. Okay. These are the ones that we need. We slide it in through here, through the grommet. On this side, pull it through. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug it in. But we need to decide how we want it to look. So let's do, it's only going to be the one. Plug that one in. No, not down. Never down. Pull this out a little bit to keep that as nice and neat as we can. However, this grommet is not holding into place very well. So, alright. So now we also need this here. This is a 3-pin. Looks like it fits. So that'll go into sysfan 1. Alright. Okay, so now the next part, we already clipped it open a little bit, so let's grab this and we'll pop open our SSD, which is
the solid state drive.
correct. This solid state drive is a Kingston brand 120 gigabyte drive. So not a lot, but it'll be.
It looks like a case.
It is covered in a case. 120 gigs will give us enough for Windows, some future updates to Windows, and some of the core files and programs.
Okay.
Now this, we're going to snag one of these cables from our motherboard. I think for this one, our best, why don't you put your hands in there and grab that real quick. It goes into the one closest to me. Get it?
Yep.
Excellent. So this is going to come up through here. And the other one, can you grab that cable?
Yep.
Okay, that we're going to run down here. Okay. Alright, we're going to lean this back now. Okay. So that goes into this slot next to this one. Alright, so now, for this, fortunately some of these will not be seen. Keep them nice and stashed away. Yes, the entire back side will not be visible because of the side panel. So we'll be able to make it look a lot neater that way. So now, this here,
Grommets are not like put in place very well.
yeah, these grommets are not the best, but it's a premium feature that we didn't pay extra for. A lot of cases don't come with these grommets, and you pay more for the case anyway. Alright, so for this, you have the screws ready?
I have one.
Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to want it to sit this way, so the cables go straight to it. So seeing as how it sits on this, that's how we're going to screw it in. So put one screw on, okay. Put another one on, okay, okay, and then the last screw. Okay, and then for this case, it just slides right in here.
With one screw.
And that's gonna be perfect too. It uses this screw here. And it's gonna sit perfect with the name facing out, just like it's supposed to sit. It's kind of cool. Shame there isn't a glass window there, huh?
Yeah.
Alright. So battery died again. We're gonna recap. We've gotten up to the SSD. We gotta connect it real quick, and then we're gonna move on to the hard drive and then some basic cable management. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do a whole lot of cable management because of personal issues, but we'll be able to get some of the basic stuff. So this will be the SSD. To get to this, we're going to stash these out of the way. So SSD needs data. And it needs power. Okay, now hard drive. Go ahead and pop that open. Pull it up. Static bag should usually have a quick tear. Nope, no quick tear. So we'll tear it ourselves. Do not eat.
Ah, there goes my dinner plans.
I know. So, alright. So now the drive, it's going to go this way. This drive cage goes this way. So why don't you go ahead and put it together. The screw holes match up roughly. No, it doesn't slide. Like that.
Victory.
Okay. So now this then slides in down here. So should slide in right about here. Why don't you slide it into place for us? There you go. So now these will need this plugs here, so why don't you go ahead and plug that in. Okay. This
Goes
plugs
next to
into
it.
the big one. Don't ever press down on it. Always straight. It will break easily.
Got it.
Okay. And then we're gonna go ahead and
Can it close?
there we are. So now the last step will be some basic cable management.
And we have twist ties.
Zip ties.
Oh yeah, zip ties.
Alright. And real quick, get me my clippers from right there. There we go. Zip ties then get snipped here, here, and there. And that will be our very limited cable management for today. Down the road we may come back to it later. Now for this we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the cover back on. So we want to try and get it up here. There we go. And we need 2 of those screws. Here, you do one, I'll do one. We're just going to use our hands, no screwdriver
Okay.
needed. Okay. Yours is this one, and mine will be this one.
Sure.
We're going to go ahead and screw this one in with a screwdriver. Could just be my hands. Now,
And then we're gonna flip it over.
just give a quick tighten there. Now for the other side. Now we're going to go ahead and move this out of the way. Move this out of the way.
Take off the back cover. It sounds so bad.
And this will go. Okay, and so I'll get them started real quick. All right, why don't you go ahead and tighten those in for us?
Okey-dokey.
Alright, I'm going to grab the feet real quick.
What I don't get is why this part is on the top, though. Shouldn't it be the side?
What are we talking about?
The
Plastic?
oh no, the top. It looks like it should be on the side.
Well, sometimes they gotta change things based on what it's supposed to look like. So you end up with stuff that would have been on the side on another design on the top or the bottom or whatever. Alright. So go ahead and peel this back. Okay. We'll peel this down. And then go ahead and peel that off. Alright, that is now a complete computer. Now for the fun part. We get to see if it turns on. So,
Okay. See, the cool part's gonna be lighting it up.
Well, first, let's see if it turns on, then we can see if it lights up.
Doesn't it look so cool? It looks kind of like a stormtrooper helmet on the front. Kinda.
Kinda.
I mean, that's just what it reminds me of. Looking again.
Scooch it this way a couple inches. There you go.
There we go.
One more. Tiny bit.
Okay.
Ooh, I see shiny lights. Let's see if it's still in camera range.
Oh. Is the processor turned on? Ooh. The memory sticks.
Okay, press the power button. Ooh.
Okay. Cool. Oh wow.
And the lights on the fan works and everything else is going.
Wait, I want to see the fan. Ooh. But I thought it was supposed to be different colors.
So there's lights on the top, lights on the front. Let's see.
Wow. Okay, so that's what that does. Changes the color.
And I don't think it can be seen by the camera, but down here we've got an LED fan going on this.
Shouldn't these be unplugged though?
No. So now we will shut this off.
But
There we
it's
go.
really cool.
We'll go ahead and unplug this. And the next step, which is the last part, will be installing windows on it.